Thank you, Chairman Comer. Just want to get something clarified. It's been said that the people have heard the border was open during the Biden administration. So, Chief Molen, just can you clarify for me, have the laws changed between the administrations, yes or no?
Thanks for the question, ma'am. There's been no change in the law.
Thank you so much. People around the world look to the United States as a beacon of hope and freedom. Some of those facing poverty, war, and famine seek a better life here to make the American dream their reality. I am proud that Northeast Ohio has a long tradition of welcoming immigrants and refugees, most recently our Afghan allies and Ukrainians fleeing Putin's illegal war. Instead of talking about our immigration system in the abstract, it seems essential to highlight the suffering of those seeking refuge. These are real people with real stories who we have the power to help. Immigrants are also bringing us economic prosperity. In 2019 alone, immigrant households in Northeast Ohio contributed $1 billion in federal taxes and $520 million in local and state taxes. That same year, 8,300 immigrant entrepreneurs generated an amazing $204.8 million in business income in Northeast Ohio. The fact is, immigrants make us stronger. Let me say that again. Immigrants make us stronger. I want to share just one story from among thousands of families who have faced hardships and were determined to seek a better life in the United States. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a collection of immigrant stories from Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services.
That objection so ordered.
Thank you. This story is about Lucia, a mother from Venezuela who is seeking a better life, safer life for her 4 children living with physical disabilities. Lucia states, and I quote, her husband and 4 children had been seeking protection for almost a year before arriving in the United States. She and her family left Venezuela because she faced persecution for speaking out against the government for denying her children health care based on their class status. The anti-government video she shared circulated throughout social media and consequently resulted in government officials targeting her and her family. Fearing for her and her children's safety, Lucia decided to leave her home. Lucia and her family tried to seek asylum in the neighboring countries, but faced discrimination and mistreatment due to her children's disabilities. Lucia's only choice was to seek asylum in the United States. She finally made it to this country a year after fleeing Venezuela. Lucia and her family are still waiting for their asylum interview, but they are relieved that their children can be properly diagnosed and receive their hearing aids. Most importantly, the children can attend a school that accommodates their disability. This is what our American story is truly about, finding a better life in this great country. Now, unfortunately, some on the other side block important action to secure our border and provide humane pathways to immigration while claiming to have strong records on the issue. The hypocrisy does not go unnoticed. The Biden administration and congressional Democrats are here to work hand in hand to fix problems in our immigration system to make our country stronger, better, and more just. I hope that my friends on the other side of the aisle will come to the table and responsibly tackle our immigration system. Thank you so much. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. Lady yields back. Chair recognizes Ms. Luna for 5 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to correct the record. It was Obama Biden who built the cages, AKA chain link partitions, used by Border Patrol stations as a safety measure to guard against things like sexual assault. I know that we had heard earlier that Trump built cages. That is simply not true. And it is also, as seen behind me, Biden who put kids in shipping containers, something that the media wanted to fact check. But as you can see, these are shipping containers. Now, it is no secret that there is a crisis at our southern border. Obviously, Mayorkas was actually caught on a hot mic a couple of years ago saying that these numbers were unsustainable. We have approximately 325,000 children enter the U.S. under Biden administration, and these are unaccompanied minors a majority of the time, and it's vastly between these ports of entries. Now, Mr. Chairman, I would ask for unanimous consent to enter these two graphics into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
The Biden administration does not want to acknowledge these facts, and they certainly don't want to know who's coming into our country. It has been estimated that a shocking 60% of Latin American children who cross the border are caught by cartels and exploited for child pornography and drug trafficking, which would be roughly about 200,000 kids under this administration. As Representative Andy Biggs had stated, because of a letter that he received, 42,577 children have been lost. Just before I go into my next point, Chief Chavez, can you tell me the youngest age of a known rape victim that you've come across or that you've heard of?
I don't have the age, ma'am. I know that when we go to the Central Processing Center, and this was in El Paso, my intelligence agents, as well as Homeland Security investigations agents, they do the debriefs at the center.
Do you have minors that are raped when crossing the border? Has it been an occurrence that has happened to either Chief Chavez or Chief Modlin? Yes or no, please? Sorry, we're limited on time.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, on my end.
Thank you. President Trump has expanded President Trump did expand biometrics collection to include DNA testing pilot program and fingerprinted children under the age of 14 to crack down on child smuggling and migrants posing as fake families. Now, I hear a lot of rhetoric saying that it was wrong for people to separate children, but I, as a Hispanic woman and a veteran, think that it is the right thing to do to separate children until you can biologically confirm that they are not being handed over into the hands of traffickers, and it is grossly irresponsible to hand those children that we might not have any idea if they're actually biologically related. Chief Modlin, would you agree that you would rather have a child to be confirmed to be a known family member than release them into the hands of a trafficker?
Thanks, ma'am. So I would agree. Anything that helps us determine the actual familial bond is positive.
Okay, so with my follow-up question on this one, are children currently having their biometric data being collected under this administration?
Ma'am, it depends on the age of the children, but 14 and above, they are, as I testified to earlier in Tucson sector, the vast majority are 17-year-old Guatemalan males. It's fairly rare to see young unaccompanied females in Tucson.
Are you able to collect at every sector in every section of the border?
I can't speak for the other sectors, ma'am, but
We do the same in RGV.
Okay. I would just like to also ask one more thing. A large part of your job is engaging in catching those that are engaging in human smuggling and trafficking. Do you believe that with more funding that you could do your job better?
ma'am, I absolutely believe more funding, we can do our own job, we can do our job better, absolutely.
Ma'am?
I agree the same, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to close out with this because I know that we're limited on time here. For any member of this House of Representatives advocating to defund Border Patrol and ICE, not only are you complicit in engaging in aiding and abetting traffickers, but you are hurting minority children at that. And with my final question, can you please tell me, are a majority of Border Patrol agents white or Hispanic?
Ma'am, my understanding is the majority of Border Patrol agents are Hispanic, and as I've stated earlier, most of them are either first-generation migrants or migrants themselves.
I will close with this. Clearly, we don't have a white supremacy issue in this country. Clearly, it's an illegal immigration one. I thank you guys for your service, and please tell your counterparts, God bless them. Thank you. Chairman, I yield my time.
Lady yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Edwards for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To each of our fine officers here, I thank you for your service at our border and all of those that are supporting you. I've heard from at least one member here this afternoon that they felt that they were the only person that represented a border district. I just completed a tour of the westernmost counties in North Carolina. Counties nestled down in the mountains, 1,000 miles away from the border. And every sheriff that I visited said that they felt that they were protecting their county from the border. They were a border county because they're seeing the influence into what was once mountains that seemed impenetrable to these types of behaviors, particularly the drugs. Mr. Modlin, I know that we have heard reports of how many pounds of fentanyl, gallons of fentanyl have been captured. Do we have any method to estimate how much fentanyl has actually made it through into the United States?
Thanks for the question, sir. To my knowledge, there is no way to estimate the amount that made it into the United States. It certainly, that estimation certainly wouldn't come from me.
I'd like to follow up. When you discover fentanyl coming in, can you tell us what that looks like? Is it in the back of a truck, a backpack? Did somebody swallow it in some container? What are the mechanisms that people are using to get the Chinese fentanyl into the U.S.?
Thanks again for the question, sir. So when we uncover fentanyl, usually it's in pill form. You've probably seen, because it's been widely discussed, some of the multicolored pills recently. I think my sector had one of the largest seizures of the multicolored fentanyl. It sort of looks a lot like candy would look like. We see that sometimes at our immigration checkpoints and then often between the ports of entry as well, or just on a traffic stop that Border Patrol agents make.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'd just like to comment to the committee that we heard an argument from the other side earlier this afternoon that this was an issue of humanity, and I couldn't agree more. When I listen to the folks in Western North Carolina, I think that we have to consider the humanity, first of all, of those fine officers that are putting their lives at risk to deal with drug dealers, to deal with the increase in crime. We need to consider the humanity for the children that are losing their parents to overdoses, or the children that are seeing their brothers and sisters incarcerated for dealing with drugs. The humanity for young folks that are getting hooked on drugs and overdosing and living their lives. The humanity for parents that are losing their children to the fentanyl influx that we see in this country. Mr. Chair, I know we're running out of time. We've got some other deadlines, so I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. The ranking member and I have agreed, and the votes have been called. I'm sure you all need a break. We have a few more people left for questions, and then we were going to do a closing statement. So at this time, the committee will stand in recess up until 10 minutes after the last vote. There are only 2 votes, I believe, so this won't last very long. So at this time, we'll be in recess until 10 minutes after the conclusion of the last vote.
He's got it.
Or do
order. Before we resume questioning, I ask unanimous consent for Representative Tony Gonzalez from Texas to waive on to the committee for the purpose of asking questions. Without objection, so ordered. Welcome the witnesses back, and now the chair recognizes Mr. Burleson for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to say thank you, Chief Modlin and Chief Chavez, and please extend a hearty thank you to your agents who risk their lives for us. They're truly patriots and heroes for the United States. Sadly, the data has clearly shown that fentanyl seizures have gone through the roof since 2020, and you have mentioned during committee that criminals tend to follow the path of least resistance. Chief Chavez, you said, quote unquote, that at one point the Remain in Mexico program has been effective, or at least was in El Paso. And then again, during Mr. Fallon's testimony, you affirmed that those processes can have an impact on agents' ability to enforce the laws of this nation. During Ms. McLean's testimony, you said that that there are really 4 outcomes, right? There's return, remove, transport, and then release. And then you said if you release more people, that could create more of an incentive for others to also cross illegally, which expects more of a likelihood of release. So my question is that while I appreciate government efficiencies and processes, and I appreciate that the border is efficient, many times processing is leading to release. Is that correct?
Thank you, Congressman, for your question. You know, the border situation is a dynamic one, and it's a very complex environment, and we deal with all sorts of nationalities. Just in the RGV, we've arrested here in this fiscal year over 142 different countries of people, right, coming from 142 different countries. And those 4 pathways, or those 4 dispositions that we talked about, we still have different pathways. They're either voluntary returns, warrant of arrest, notice to appear, either expedited removal or parole, NTD, or NTAs as well. The release is the last option, sir, for us. It's not something we do easily. It's something that we take very much caution with.
In what percentage of the 4, what percentage is release used?
I think I don't have the percentage amount here with me today, but it's something that we can certainly get back to you on with our headquarters.
My other question is, have we always had this approach to release or the parole policy? Have we always had this approach that we have today?
It has always been an option.
But has it been done the way that it's being performed today?
Not in my experience.
So today we're doing things with parole and release differently than we have done in years past.
It's been practiced a little bit more fluidly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with that being said, when you say fluid, prior to 2020, was the process of parole, how fluid, how much more prevalent was that?
I think previously it was a little bit more restrictive. It required a lot more verifications and approvals up the chain of command up to our headquarters level.
Okay, so that to me, so the process of the parole was more restrictive prior to 2020 than it is today?
It was to a certain extent, because even the releases today, we still need to make notification to our headquarters on releases, but chief patrol agents in the field today do have the purview based on the extent of their capacity levels to react to the ability to coordinate with their NGOs to try and have a release of migrants from their custody immediately if you see their capacity levels to be overwhelming.
Okay, so then the question is, you know, the requirements are for parole, the path to parole is basically based on an only by case basis, and you have to provide the reason, the specific reason for that individual. That is, am I wrong? Is that not what the law says?
No, you are not wrong, sir. The thing is, we coordinate everything through ICRO. It is not directly done from CBP Border Patrol. It is in coordination with ICRO. They're at our facilities doing the processing with us jointly, and therefore it is coordinated with them and then the NGO.
Okay, so who is recording the reason for the parole?
It would be ICE ERO.
ICRO. Okay. But that is being documented,
Yes, sir.
because it is required by law that it be documented.
Yes, it is documented. Everything is documented.
So according to the Omnibus Appropriations Bill in March of 2022, it required that within 60 days that there be a quarterly report to Congress, including the number of parole requests received and granted, and for those granted, the rationale for each grant and its duration. Would you be surprised to know that the report that was released to Congress did not include any of the rationale for each parolee granted?
I was not aware of that, sir.
But you agree with me that it would be an expectation, if it's in the law, that it should be the responsibility of, to provide that information individually for each individual?
I would think if it's a requirement to record, and then if it's under law that it's required, that it's something that should be submitted.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yield back.